welcome to SquishiVision. I finished watching the first 2 episodes of the brand new spin-off of Doctor Who, The War Between the Land and the Sea. Show that I keep forgetting is actually a thing, and then I see the adverts for it, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a thing. And I'm like, why is this a thing? I think a sentiment that most Doctor Who fans are sharing. Like, of all the kind of things to focus on, it just seems oddly specific. And you know, as we see, Russell T Davies is the second Alexa, Volume 0. Russell T Davies is second run of Doctor Who, and I think I am safe in saying that I'm widely well-aligned reception to the return to the franchise. And then, you know, this comes out and there's quotes going around about how Russell T Davies is saying, oh, this is kind of, you know, this is a good showcase of what impact Doctor Who can reach, and you have to ask the question, why did you not try and reach that impact with actual Doctor Who rather than spin-off? And you know, as we kind of look, I mean, Doctor Who. Look, I know I put a Beatty thing in the caption, the title. I don't believe Doctor Who's dead. I don't believe he's been killed off. But obviously, it's not in a great place right now. Like, for what is not necessarily narrative, well, partially narrative reasons, and mostly production reasons. And you gotta wonder, is the reason why that's happened because Rusty Davis is focusing on this, which essentially is an original show, not necessarily restricted by the not restricted by you know, just the series Bible, the expectations, the conformities of Doctor Who has to be, even when Doctor Who kind of like pushes that, it still has to conform towards it. Just wrapped in Doctor Who IP, but essentially Russell Davies telling a story that Russell Davies wants to tell, and this is what the show they wanted to make was, but they couldn't do it in Doctor Who because Doctor Who has an expectation around it, which is fine. But then you gotta wonder, was the cost of making this show sacrificing Doctor Who? And if it is this show worth it? I don't know yet if it is, but this show is kind of good, or at least it is in the first 2 episodes we've seen, and I have seen reviews. I don't know if those reviews are only for the first 2 episodes that I've seen, or for the entire series, but people are actually saying it's actually a pretty well made show. Could it fit in Doctor Who? I can see how it's different, obviously, because the first episode was much better than the second episode, but again, it's like 2 episodes. Firstly, the reservations around continuity. Everything that people were kind of complaining about, like, why do the Sea Devils look like this? Well, this is actually canonically, even narrative mentioned, an outlier. Like, this is the only person we see like this, and no one knows exactly what they are for this species. The whole thing about the Sea Devil's name, like, are they Sea Devils, are they Homo Aquas, are they something else? Homo Aqua isn't even like the right Latin for what you would call these creatures. Surprisingly, even all that's addressed in the show. When someone's like, actually, technically they would be called this, someone's like, I know technically they would be called this. But this one rolls off the tongue better. And they even address the fact that they used to be called Sea Devils. I mean, that was pretty obvious from like the press releases. Everyone was like, oh, Russell T Davies is like retconning what Sea Devils were called because of some real life wokeness. It's like, no, they're talking about like in-universe political correctness. Not that political correctness is a thing, but that gets addressed. I was lost for a long period of time exactly what Russell Tovey's character's Barclay's role was in the narrative, because it was very vague. Like, it was clear that he was a civilian, but like what was his civilian role, and then it kind of eventually like the job he used to be a witness, an observer, which I actually think is a pretty nice concept. What else does the show kind of do? I mean, I have to suspend disbelief that people would be so patient in not reacting to Sea Devil's appearance with violence so soon. That's true. I can believe would. But if the Sea Devils appeared across the entirety of the globe, I am convinced that somebody somewhere would start shooting. The show does a good job in like avoiding all those like miscommunication, like manufactured conflict situations, communication kills trope, which I really hate in sea media. Like, there is like a fair bit of understanding, like, you know, like the Sea Devils, they understand that the humans are being politics, but they're not politicians, and even though they want to make peace, they're going to be completely like pushing for their own like kind of interests. They understand that Barclay is sincere, but also has like no clue what's going on. He's actually really ill-prepared to be any kind of diplomat. As kind of idealistic as he is, he's not like suitable for it. All that's kind of addressed. Dialogue isn't actually terrible. There is one part in the second episode where Barclay goes into a rant about how we're ruining the Earth, and it does kind of borderline go into preachy. But when Doctor Who let shows go preachy, they tend to go quite like cringe about it, and I think that's just an accepted part of Doctor Who, where people are going to speak like that, even when it's unnatural. But also equally, having been to a lot of protests, where people do start getting preachy, they do become less protesty. They do become less natural, and more as if they're reading a script. Even if it's improvised, you kind of do get into that kind of like habit of saying a lot of platitudes, even if you mean it. Like, even if they're sincere platitudes, you do kind of fall into that. Because I mean, especially if you're not like used to like improvising, like solic ways, then you're gonna kind of do that. So actually, in a way, the unnaturalness is natural. The show looks okay. There's some like pretty good CGI in some places, and some pretty bad CGI in some places. Which I mean, it kind of looks like modern Doctor Who. I think when it's focusing on like the humans, it looks good. When it's focusing on more fantasy things, it looks so good. I think both the leads doing a spectacular job. It does feel like a Russell T Davies show. I'm not so much else of Russell T Davies' work, but I'm aware of the kind of stuff he goes for. And I think, him doing this whole story about humanity dealing with its own kind of flaws is a Russell T Davies. But yeah, it's good. It's like it probably helps that I had very low expectations for the show, and so it's exceeded them. Again, it's not nothing to replace Doctor Who with, so I still think there's some resentment that Russell T Davies might, do that. But it is what it is. Anyway, I am sleepy and I want to react to Wicked before I go to bed while I have everything set up for it, and I'm wearing a shirt. So I'm gonna go do that and go to bed. So,